Hey folks, do you think someone who is not in the room with you can dial in and calibrate your room better than you can if you're the one sitting here with the laptop and the mic? Today we're talking about the remote calibration process that StormAudio offers for owners of their products. I've got the ISR Fusion 20 AVR, but it's the same process for all of their products. So yeah, we're going to talk about what it entails, how good it sounds, how long it takes, and if it really can do a better job than someone who's in the room. Stick around. Hey guys, how's it going? Big day here today. Today is the remote calibration for the StormAudio ISR Fusion 20 AVR that I've been using in here. Been waiting on my new sub configuration to get squared away, and that is now handled. I gotta tell you, I've been really impressed with the sound of this thing already, just with what I've done with my limited calibration capabilities. But now we're gonna see how it works when Matt Trinkline from StormAudio is going to remote in. We're going to, I've got my laptop here, I've got my UMic 1 here. It's all getting ready, getting connected. In just a few minutes, Matt and I are going to connect online, and he's going to walk me through all new measurements. We're going to do before and after. We're going to do the whole works, and I'm going to try and figure out how to best show what this process is going to look like. So stay tuned. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be the remote calibration with StormAudio. I'm about a little bit more than a week out from having my room calibrated by StormAudio. I've been using the ISR Fusion 20 AVR in here for the last several months, and I was waiting to have them calibrated until I had the new NextLevel 15-inch subs in place, so that they could calibrate it with all 4 subs running instead of just the 2 that are now just kind of filler in the room. But you know, I wanted to give it a little bit of time after the calibration instead of just recording this immediately when it was done, and really look back, and I'll kind of talk you through what that process was like and maybe what they did different from what I was doing. But then I also want to talk a little bit about the results themselves and how it sounds in here, and how much or how little it may differ from the calibration that I had performed without their help on my own. Myself being someone who knows quite a bit, but also I'm not a professional calibrator either. There's some things about working with Matt remotely that are just really impressive to me, and I'll talk about that a little bit too. But so basically, to start off, Matt asked me several questions about the system before we even got connected online to do the actual calibration. So, he asked kind of the seating layout. He wanted distances for measurements from everything, what the actual products were, what the speakers were in here, typical listening habits, typical, who's in the room usually, and do we want to focus it on 1 seat or 3 seats or 2 seats, or, basically, kind of those basic questions. And then he gave me just a PDF of a measurement map, and some differences about that. It was very precise locations, which I understand and I had done before, but they were also spread out wider than what I was measuring. I thought I was measuring for the same area, but I was kind of surprised how far out some of the measurement locations were from the seating position. But then also, every measurement, there was a specific height requirement. So they were definitely not just moving the mic around the main seating position and getting a bunch of different measurements. So that was one difference. I definitely, they told me when I was calibrating on my own to give that some forethought. And I thought I did, but apparently I didn't give it as much forethought as I maybe should have. So once he had sent that over and I had it open and I was seated up here. My office computer is in the back of the room, and that was where I had kind of a video conference going with Matt, but he was controlling my laptop, which was sitting here. So he was seeing everything that was going on in the room and watching me place the microphone, but he was actually controlling my laptop, which was up here, connected via HDMI into the Storm audio receiver, which is in the back underneath that computer. So it was, kind of didn't need to be a 2-computer setup, but it was. We did it that way just because we could, and that way I could record kind of the video chat with him, as well as screen capture my recordings here. So I could capture the screen of the laptop down here. So I have no idea how this is going to, how this explanation of the remote calibration is going to look to the viewer. It's literally watching Dirac and REW and taking measurements and hearing the whoops and seeing me moving the mic around and things like that. But it really was, it was a fun few hours, and for those of us who like to noodle in this hobby, it was fun and it was interesting to watch. So once he had sent me the microphone plot and we got everything configured, obviously we started off by taking some measurements. When I take measurements before doing a calibration, I'm generally doing it with the intention of having something to compare my post Dirac or Genesis or whatever it might be, my post results to what the room sounded like with nothing there. But Matt actually took this to a different place, and we did the initial measurements, and it really showed, all the limitations and the oddities of my room, the fact that it's, not enclosed in the back, and there's a little hallway off to the side back here that goes to the laundry room and the spare room and a bathroom. But we took all the measurements of the system, and then he went in to before we even opened Dirac, the StormAudio has a PEQ section in there, which I had completely ignored when I calibrated it. It didn't even occur to me to do that. Just thinking, I think my mind went to, well, it's one or the other, not realizing it can be both. So we took some basic measurements with REW, with just the raw system in the room, just to see what the room's deficiencies are and what we can do before we even send this off to actual room correction. So Matt right now is applying some basic EQ filters to the system that will, with the Storm, you can actually add a PEQ filter across all channel, or to each channel individually, in addition to the Dirac room correction. So he's manually adjusting the EQ, kind of fixing a little bit of the room manually before we run it through the Dirac process. So he's a lot smarter than I am. So Matt went in to the PEQ section and really did a lot of pre-flattening of the curve there, so that the signal being sent to Dirac ART, active room treatment, so the signal being sent off to ART was already EQ'd pretty nicely, and the ART was more just working on cleaning up the room and supporting other speakers and knocking out those unwanted reflections and transients and things like that. So several more rounds of measurements in REW and going back and tweaking and adjusting the PEQ filters channel by channel. We went through, I don't think we did all of the channels, but we did most of the channels. I know we did the front three and the subs and the surrounds. I don't recall if we, like I did any of this. I don't recall if he EQ'd the top channels at all. But for the most part, we got a decent response curve going in, and then we took those results into Dirac, and we only did art measurements this time. That I've found that I'm happier with the art results by messing with it on my own. So we spent our time focusing and concentrating on that active room treatment. It really does just a fantastic job, and I've been really happy with it. So ran the art filters and applied the target curves that StormAudio provides to all their customers. Basically, it's kind of a it's a common curve that it's a good jumping off point for most users, most listeners, most owners. So we ran those, and he did some more tweaking to flatten things out. After the art filters had been created, Matt then imported them into the Storm, did some more measurements with art engaged, and went back and tweaked those PEQ filters on a channel by channel basis, even a little bit more, and just based on the response that we were getting after the art filters were engaged, he wanted to smooth a few things out. We boosted the bass a little bit more. We did some, I think we brought the curtains in on the high end a little bit on the top channels to really open up that air on the top of the room. But yeah, we went back and tweaked the signal that was being sent to Dirac. So the signal flow in the Storm is from the input, it goes through the PEQ filters first, and then from there it applies the Dirac room correction, the active room treatment art filters as well. So we were kind of going back and just adjusting what was being sent to art even after the fact and comparing to what was being done. And the end result is big. It's going to be a big shocker here. It's fantastic. It sounds incredible. My first reaction, however, was, wow, I did a better job than I really realized, I think. It wasn't like some night and day immediately thinking, oh my gosh, yes, okay, I must have done something wrong. Like, it just sounded really good. And over the week or so of listening to content and watching movies, just our typical viewing, which also usually ends at the end of the night with me playing some of my demo clips after my partner goes upstairs to get ready for bed. I'll play that demo playlist, some stuff out of there, just to listen in and see what I might notice and what might be missing or what might be there. And so after a week or so of that typical listening and typical use, I can say that there are really, really big differences, but they're not the kind of differences that are going to jump out and punch you in the face. Like the flat response curve. How do you hear a flat response curve? Well, where it's really, for me, noticeable is with a bass drop. You're listening to a song or a movie, and it's got that, the bass frequency might sweep from, 150 hertz down to infrasonic levels or whatever. And even, using active room treatment for my calibration, you could definitely hear points where that bass would just kind of disappear, then it would come back, and or it wouldn't disappear, but it would decrease. And now with Matt's work in here, and with the PEQ filters having flattened out that bass response a lot more, flattened it and then boosted it, basically. We took the peaks, mushed them down to be there, even with the stuff that was normal, and then we boosted the entire signal. So that those bass drops are just smooth and consistent. They're not, you know, it doesn't get loud at one frequency and it doesn't get quiet at another frequency as much. There's still some imperfections in my room that are still evident, but they're a lot less evident with Matt's calibration work in here. So to me, that's one of those bigger realizations of the difference in the room. Is I had almost become accustomed to that in here, hearing the uneven response there in those. But, you know, explosions always sounded great. Gunfire always sounded great. It's not that it was sounding terrible, but it's when you hear something like that where you notice, oh, that is very different. Would my partner notice it? Probably not. Not if I didn't point it out. And she trusts me. Trust me, she loves when I talk about speakers and subwoofers and signals and HDMI and immersive channels and stuff. She just she eats it up. It's so comforting to hear me talk about that. It just puts her right to sleep. She loves it. Another thing that's been really noticeable to me is listening to music. And admittedly, I haven't historically and don't listen to a lot of music down here, but I do really enjoy concert films. I grew up on VHS tapes, and I still love a good, well-produced concert film. And listening to some music in here really, really shines with Matt's calibration. It really, you can really hear the difference there. Instruments are just placed more where they should be in the mix, and you know, also things that I don't like are more evident, like where the light is with the John Mayer concert film. I love so much of how that sounds, but I hate the vocal microphone that he uses. I wish he would have used something different with a little more finesse, because that mic is just really abrasive to me, and especially with John Mayer's voice. But like A Delicate Sound of Thunder with Pink Floyd, fantastic sounding. Muse, the Muse Simulation Theory concert film it's really one of my favorites. And there were a few songs on there that were almost unlistenable because it is a very, very bass heavy show. And with the uneven bass frequency curve that I was getting, or the response that I was getting, it was almost overwhelming, the amount of bass from that show. But listening to it now, even at louder levels, higher levels than I'm accustomed to listening down here, just sounds really, really, it's like being at a live show. We saw them here in town a couple years ago or a year ago, and it really just sounds really nice, with Matt's new calibration. That's just really, he really did a nice job. And like I said, it wasn't evident right you know, when I first started turning some stuff in, turning some clips on, it wasn't just like, wow. But the more you listen and the more you hear some of the little nuances and the details, and when you know what to listen for, you realize the difference of what you're hearing. So one of the things that is always really fun to me and interesting to me when I've worked with Matt in the past is, like, you know, he's basically listening, he's hearing the room on a FaceTime call. He's not in the room hearing this, but you can say, you know, there's that clip, this wasn't quite, you know, this didn't have enough impact, or this sounded a little little constrained or whatever, and he knows exactly what frequencies to adjust and what, well, okay, I'll open up the Q on this channel on the PEQ on the center channel, or on the subs or whatever. And he knows, just by telling him a sound, he knows right where to go in the frequency curve to adjust it. And that's a level of knowledge that I could figure it out, but it would require a lot of Googling. And it's the result of doing this and studying this and making this your career that Matt has, that it's just an instinctual thing. The gun in the waste processing plant in Blade Runner didn't punch me in the face like I expect. Okay, tweak, import new curves, done, and it's fixed. So fun to watch him work, and even more fun to have the results of his work in the room. So that's kind of the process. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was about a half a day is what it took, about 4 hours. He had done another calibration in the morning, and then he logged on and did this with me, and we had wrapped up by 5, I think. Started up after lunch and wrapped up by 5, and it's just really, really impressive. And I would be really interested to know, what more or what different he could do if he were in the same room and able to work on it then. Would it just be a matter of, well, it'd be faster, or would he be, I'm sure he would be able to use his own ears to listen for things and tweak specific things that he's hearing that would improve upon the sound. But he also knows, based on the measurements and what he sees in the graphs, he kind of knows what it sounds like based on what it looks like on the graph. I've got a friend who does camera shading in live sports production trucks, and he can tell you what's happening on the field by looking at a waveform or vectorscope. He can see the action in the meters that he's using to color grade and make camera adjustments. And it's the same sort of thing. Matt knows, based on the frequency response that he's seeing in his measurements, he knows where a deficiency may be, or how to improve upon something that the customer or the client wants. So all things considered, just once again, it's still, months later, it boggles my mind that this is an AVR. It's just, it's not lacking in anything that I need. I've got a 5-4-4 setup. Every channel has its own PEQ. Every channel has the amplification needed. The subs obviously have their own amplification, but it sounds fantastic. It's a very powerful processor. The amplification is more than enough for what is needed. It just sounds fantastic. And I'm going to do, the next project with this is I'm going to put together a full, kind of a comprehensive review of my experience and my time with this AVR. And that one will be something that I'm going to post on the AV Nirvana channel, as well as on the avnirvana.com website. Kind of the more comprehensive, polished, put together review versus my random ramblings here. But just kind of in a nutshell, it still blows my mind that this is a receiver. It's a receiver in a class of its own. I've never heard a receiver that performs this well. I keep saying it, but it's mind-boggling. It really, really, really does a nice job. You know, the one drawback to it has been that it's deeper than my processor that it replaced, and I can't get it all the way into the rack, but luckily it's in the bottom slot, so it can just sit there and stick out a little bit in the front. But you know, with amplification in there, it's deeper, and I have some other hardware in the back of the rack, like an IR signal splitter and my HD home run tuners that, you know, make the Plex a DVR and things like that. So I can't, like, that's the complaint about a receiver, that to me is pretty impressive. It's an interesting product and an interesting position, because when you're talking about that much money, that return on investment, is it there? Is it not there? But also when you're talking about, you know, that sort of a price point, most people, like myself included, just kind of assume if I'm going to spend this much money, I want to get a processor and separate amplification, because that's where I'm going to get the best performance. And that's generally the case, but this AVR fits the bill. It fits the profile. When you buy this AVR, you're getting, you know, not to give away my review, but the return on investment is there. Is it maybe a little diminishing returns? Probably, maybe, but I tell you what, this thing really is, as an AVR, it's in a class of its own. There's nothing else I've heard or seen that will compare to it. The price point is high, but if you're going to spend that much, I don't know that you're going to be disappointed if you put one of these in your rack. If it has the channel processing that you need, which again, it's the ISR Fusion 20, it has 20 channels of processing. 16 of those channels have amplification, and 4 of them are on XLR outputs. So if 20 channels of processing is enough for your system, this is a product to be taken seriously. And again, I don't want to give away my review, but it's there. It is currently far outperforming my processor and separate amp setup that I was using before I put this in my rack. And I know I've had some comments about the amps I was using, and I wouldn't doubt that would play into it. I'm kind of hoping that maybe Storm will allow me to spend some time with one of their processors as well as their amps, so that I could put my existing amps on their processor and see if it has the same impact as the ISR Fusion, or if it's more going to be along the lines of what my previous setup was. And so, you know, maybe we can narrow some of it down to my amplification versus the ICE power that's in the ISR Fusion. That's one thing. It doesn't have preamp outputs except for those 4 channels, so I can't do that direct comparison here yet today, but I want to, and hopefully we'll get the chance to run that test and see where it stands. But yeah, I don't think anyone would be disappointed with this AVR, even though it's all in one box. If anything, it's just going to clean up your rack. So elsewhere, I've got to review the NextLevel Acoustics subs that are in. I've got more content on the Unfolded Circle Remote 3 coming in, which that's just an amazing device. Really, really pleased with how that has come together. It's taken a few extra months to ship, but it's well worth it. I do understand that for a lot of people it's a complicated process to program. I felt the same way when I got the Remote 2, but once that process clicks in your mind, you can really, it becomes really pretty basic. It's just different than programming a harmony or a sofa baton. It's not that different, but it's a little different. So I'm going to be doing more content with that remote, showing, you know, maybe some shorter video content that will show specific, one specific process instead of kind of that larger full configuration video that I've published already. But yeah, more coming on the unfolded circle, got the sub review, and of course, you're not going to want to miss the review of the StormAudio receiver. That being said, watch for that review. I'll post a link to it when it drops on AV Nirvana, and stick around to my channel for more on the NextLevel Acoustics subs, the unfolded circle remote, and more black t-shirts. This is you might not be able to see it on the camera, but this is not the same one. This one has some waveform files displayed on it. It's a shirt from the Envy Corps, fantastic band, now defunct, out of the Midwest. Take a listen if you like Radiohead, if you like Ben Stellar, go listen to the Envy Corps. Yeah, more gray shirts definitely on the way. I might have been wearing this one last week when we did the remote calibration. I don't exactly recall, but I bet it was gray. But yeah, I guess I'll find out when I edit, huh? Yeah, more gray shirts, more unfolded circle, more NextLevel Acoustics, and more StormAudio coming up. Make sure you like and subscribe. Once again, I didn't say smash or I don't know. Anyway, like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon. V means very. Sorry, that's probably about as bad as smash that like button.